All right, so I just watched Spider Noir on Prime, and honestly, I loved it. And yes, I watched it in black and white. Duh. I was just saying the other day how lately I've been drawn to like pulp and radio serials like The Shadow, The Rocketeer, and The Phantom, and this nicely slots into that. I think Shadow meets Spider Man, and you're roughly there. I will say this is definitely a Nick Cage show, and a lot of your personal enjoyment will depend on how much you enjoy watching Nick Cage just chew scenery, which I quite like in general. So if you like Cage, you've probably already seen or started the show. Now, to be fair, the acting and special effects can be a bit suspect. The story isn't going to knock anyone's socks off, but when everything comes together for me, I was laughing and cheering and generally having a great time with this wild ride of a show. Now, the premise, nothing new. Nick Cage plays Ben Riley, a private detective who is also the local vigilante named The Spider. Well, wouldn't you know that 5 years ago, the love of his life was killed right before they could get engaged. What timing. This throws Ben into a downward spiral where he swears off being the Spider. And not for nothing, essentially swears off being a private investigator as well. The Spider's absence allows the local crime syndicate run by the gangster Silvermane, played by Brendan Gleeson, who's just having too much fun in this role. I'll get to it later, but man, he's having a blast, and it works. So it allows him to increase his stranglehold on New York City. That is, until someone tries to burn his house down with him in it. Ben takes a job trying to find what we assume is some random World War I vet for a reason he doesn't quite care about, only to discover that the man has the ability to set himself ablaze without taking any damage. Where the powers come from and how everything ties together is one of the main stories, and it does a fine job combining pulp and noir into a fun and simple adventure. I won't spoil it because, it's fun to watch even if it's like overly predictable at times. But I think that plays into the charm of it. It's like comfort food. Because it really gives this stellar cast quite a bit to do. I mean, everyone gets their scenes to bounce off Nick Cage. And, man, I love just watching him interact with these other characters. It's especially great because even with such capable side characters who can go and do their own things, the show never really strays too far from Ben Riley. And I do see Ben because there's really not an overabundance of the Spider. This isn't one of those how the Spider got his groove back kind of things. It's more of a begrudging journey to accept it might be time to get back in the saddle again. In fact, one of the first full-on the Spider is back moments carries pretty big consequences, and I was pretty impressed by just how they let all that play out. It was pretty cool. But back to the characters. We're treated to a trio of heroes with Ben, his secretary Janet, and reporter Robbie. All three get something to do to add to the story. I will say that Janet probably gets the least to do for the most part, but there's one particular callback in like the final episodes that I found particularly delightful. Robbie gets a fair amount more to do as the reporter, and he's often the one chasing down some of the other plot lines. It works because, like I said, it also comes back to Ben. And as much as I enjoyed our heroes, the villains stole the show from me, hands down. Sandman and Tombstone are well acted with compelling stories in their own right that fit right in with the tone and setting. The femme fatale Kat Hardy, perfectly fine as well. That's what she does. She's the femme fatale. She's the noir mystery girl. Though her motivations are pretty clear early on, it never really got in the way of the narrative for me, and it even helped progress it from time to time, so it's not just all noir filler. But it's Silvermane that shines brightest. Oh my goodness. Gleason's Silvermane. What a delight. He's not the most complex villain, but Gleason brings just a fair amount of energy and a ton of charisma to an overly, simple cookie-cutter gangster role. But the best scenes, hands down, are when Gleason and Cage are on screen together and the dialogue between them. Oh man, what a joy. Veiled threats, tough guy bravado, all the cheese you can enjoy. And it was delivered brilliantly by these two who are just clearly having fun being in the same scene. Overall dialogue's pretty good for the show. Some people are more comfortable hamming it up than others, and it isn't written perfectly with noir or pulp in mind. Think of it almost like a postmodern jukebox. They put a spin on it. Some of the modern swearing was a little jarring though, but I kind of forgave it because I was having fun. My negatives for this one are actually pretty short. Like I said, not all the acting is great. The villain Megawatt can be so over the top and a bit of a try-hard, it comes across as cringy. There's a bit too much focus on Kat on times, and I know it's war and you got to get the femme fatale in there, but it didn't seem especially relevant because we already know what her motivations are, and we sort of, where it's headed. Sometimes the spider powers are forgotten for plot convenience, and that kind of bummed me out. Like, dude, just jump out the window. You're the spider. Modern sounding music at times can kind of be a little wonky. It pulls you out, but like I said, if you think of it as a postmodern jukebox vibe, you're kind of already there. And I hate to say it, I do. I hate to say it, but Cage might just be a little too old for this role. You know, it's a little weird watching him try and flirt with like the femme fatale, Cat. But that being said, I'd rather have him play it than anyone else. He's just so much fun to watch. And like I said, if you like Nick Cage, you're going to like this. At the end of the day, I really just had a great time watching the show. I did it in 2 sittings, right? So I did 4 and 4. No drinking or anything. Just had it up on the screen, enjoyed the ride. I highly recommend this show. I mean, it was fun. And it's going to stick with me for a long time because it's a different spin on like the Spider-Man stories. If you go in expecting classic Spider-Man, you're not going to get it. Like I said at the beginning, think The Shadow meets Spider-Man, and you're there. All right, did you guys see this? What did you think? Let me know. All right, till next time.